If your employer stopped paying you tomorrow, how long could you survive? Like a month, a week,
Oh man, that is a
right? It's terrifying.
yeah, it's a deeply uncomfortable question to actually ask yourself.
It is. But I mean, think about it. What if the person driving that, that massive luxury SUV
Mm.
in the gated community is actually just completely teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, while, the guy in the modest ranch house next door is quietly sitting on a multi-million-dollar fortune?
Oh, it's totally completely backwards to
Yeah.
how we normally think about it. It forces this complete rewiring of how we perceive success because we are so heavily conditioned, to judge financial stability by what we can literally physically see.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do it all the time.
We all do. We take in the large house, the perfectly manicured lawn,
Sure.
the imported car, and our brains just automatically process that visual data as wealth. Like, boom, they have money.
Right. They've made it.
Right. But when you start actually pulling back the curtain on their personal balance sheets, that visual representation it's just completely misleading most of the time.
Which is exactly why we're here today. We are doing a deep dive into the introduction chapter of some really incredible source material. We're looking at a massive stack of research here. I mean, it's over 2 decades of survey data plus thousands of interviews with high net worth individuals to basically figure out who actually holds the wealth in America.
And this isn't just, some dry academic exercise either.
No, not at all. For anyone trying to build a business or honestly just secure your own financial future, we are systematically dismantling the great American myth, I guess you could call it that. A high income equals wealth.
Because it doesn't. And that's the core tension here. It requires separating two concepts that society just constantly, relentlessly blends together.
Income and wealth.
Exactly. We have to separate what we assume wealth looks like, which is essentially just high consumption,
Yeah.
from what true wealth actually is, which is high accumulation.
Right. Earning a massive salary and just blowing it all, spending it all, doesn't make someone wealthy.
Not even a little bit. It just means they're living a very high status lifestyle.
Yeah, they're just pushing cash through the system.
Yeah.
So let's look at how the researchers actually stumbled onto this huge disconnect, because it's kind of a funny story. When they initially set out to study the rich, they took like the most logical approach imaginable.
Sure. Yeah.
They wanted to understand how people build fortunes. So they basically just went to survey the people living in the most exclusive upscale neighborhoods across the country.
I mean, it makes intuitive sense, right?
Yeah.
Want to study wealth, you go to where the expensive real estate is.
Right, you go to the mansions.
Yeah, you go to the country clubs. But they immediately ran into this profound anomaly. When they analyzed the actual net worth of the families living in these mansions, driving these amazing luxury cars, they found that a massive percentage of them had very little true wealth.
Wait, so they were basically broke.
Functionally, yes. I mean, they had huge incomes, but their balance sheets were an absolute disaster.
It's kind of like it's like trying to fill a bucket that's made of Swiss cheese.
That's a good way to look at it, yeah.
Right? Like you can have a literal fire hose of cash, just a massive, massive salary pointed right at this bucket. But if the money's just, pouring out the bottom into luxury car leases, a bloated mortgage country club,
Yeah.
dues, all that stuff, that bucket is never going to fill up.
No, it can't. The math doesn't work.
And the water that actually stays inside the bucket, that is your actual net worth. That's your wealth.
Exactly. And the terrifying part is what happens when the fire hose shuts off or even just loses a little bit of pressure.
Right. A layoff or a medical issue.
Yeah. The data shows these high-earning families, they immediately take on debt just to plug the holes and maintain the illusion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they borrow just to look rich. And
Yeah.
this anomaly completely shifted the entire trajectory of the research because it revealed the second half of the equation.
Which is where the actual rich people are.
Right. Many of the people who actually possess significant wealth didn't live in those upscale neighborhoods at all. They lived right next door in middle-class, thoroughly average neighborhoods.
Which points to this just massive psychological blind spot in our culture. Like, why do we instantly assume the guy in the bespoke suit is a millionaire while we just completely ignore the guy in the flannel shirt?
Because we conflate the signifiers of occupational success with financial success.
Unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by occupational success?
Well, we were taught from a very young age to revere advanced degrees, high intelligence, prestigious titles. So when we see a highly educated physician or a corporate attorney about if the societal expectations dictate that they should live in a certain zip code,
Yeah, they have to play the part.
they have to drive a certain caliber of vehicle, In many ways, their professions actually demand a high consumption lifestyle just to look successful to their peers and clients.
Right. You wouldn't trust a lawyer who pulls up in a beat-up Honda Civic.
Exactly. Even if that lawyer has $5 million in the bank. Our brains say, oh, he must not be a good lawyer. But the data shows that wealth is rarely the inevitable result of a prestigious job. True wealth is behavioral.
Behavioral.
Yeah, it's the result of perseverance, meticulous planning, and just rigorous self-discipline.
So what does this actually mean for, the listener as you look at your own bank account? It means you have to fundamentally change your metric for success. You have to stop measuring your financial health by the size of your paycheck or the brands you wear, and you have to start measuring it by the assets you keep.
And if you don't make that shift, if you keep confusing income with wealth, you fall into the trap of the so-called good earner, which the data shows is a remarkably fragile position to be in.
Fragile is a scary word when it comes to money.
It is, but look at the numbers. At the time of the study, there was over $22 trillion in personal wealth in America. $22 trillion.
It is a staggering number.
It is, but here's the catch. Nearly half of that total wealth was owned by just 3.5% of households.
Wait, 3.5%? That means a huge amount of people are completely left out of the wealth equation entirely. Even people making what we would consider to be, great money.
Exactly. We are talking about millions of households earning well over $50,000 or $100,000 a year who don't even come close to holding significant wealth.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does the average household actually look like in the data?
The median household in America, according to the text, has a net worth of less than $15,000 once you exclude home equity.
$15,000. That is nothing.
Nothing. And it gets worse if you strip away the equity in motor vehicles and furniture, things you can't exactly easily liquidate to buy groceries.
Right. You can't pay for surgery with a sofa.
Exactly. Most households have practically zero financial assets like stocks or bonds.
Wow. So that means a single medical emergency or, a sudden layoff could just completely wipe out a family that's earning a six-figure salary?
Yep.
The high income is basically just a mirage.
It's a mirage that requires constant, exhausting upkeep. Without a monthly check coming in from an employer, the average American family could only survive a month or two.
And this isn't just isolated to the middle class, right?
No, not at all. Even the top quintile, the top 20% of earners, they only have a median household net worth of less than $150,000.
At the top 20%.
Yeah. And when the researchers looked at senior citizens, the reality was even starker. Without Social Security benefits, almost half of Americans over 65 would basically live in poverty.
Man, that is heavy. But there's this one statistic in the research that I think perfectly captures how we literally trap ourselves in this cycle. It's this huge asset mismatch.
Oh, the car thing.
Yes, the car thing. The text points out that over 85% of households own one or more motor vehicles, but fewer than 25% own stocks or mutual funds.
It's wild, isn't it?
We are systematically allocating our hard-earned resources into assets that depreciate rapidly, like instantly.
Yeah, you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, and it loses what a massive chunk of its value before you even get it home.
Right, and then it continues to cost you money, right?
Right.
You've got insurance, maintenance, taxes, gas. It's a liability disguised as an asset.
Whereas stocks and mutual funds, conversely, are actual financial assets. They tend to appreciate and generate dividends over the long term. They pay you.
We are literally parking our money in metal boxes designed to lose value. We buy these cars to signal to other people that we are doing well, but it's the exact mechanism that's keeping us poor.
It's self-sabotage for the sake of appearances.
Exactly. We are trading long-term financial freedom for short-term visual status on the highway with people we don't even know.
It is the ultimate triumph of consumption over accumulation. To break out of this trap, you really have to audit your possessions and your cash flow. If you want to build a resilient balance sheet, you have to consciously, aggressively redirect funds away from these rapidly depreciating status symbols and toward appreciating financial assets.
You have to acquire things that pay you rather than things you have to pay to maintain.
Right. You want assets that put money in your pocket while you sleep.
Okay, so if buying depreciating assets to look wealthy is what's keeping the high earners broke, who is actually holding that $22 trillion? Because you'd assume it's just, trust fund kids and old money families, right?
Yeah, that's the assumption, but the data paints a totally different picture of the self-made millionaire.
Yeah.
The pervasive myth of the Vanderbilt or Rockefeller heir just coasting on family money is completely shattered by the number.
Really? So it's not all inheritance.
Not even close. Over 80% of millionaires in America are ordinary first-generation rich people.
80%. That is wild.
Yeah, they didn't inherit their wealth. They accumulated it slowly and steadily over the course of an entire lifetime.
So they aren't the young tech billionaires or the lottery winners we see on the news all the time.
No, the media sensationalizes overnight success because obviously it makes for a very compelling story. It's fun to read about. But the statistical probability of achieving wealth via, you know, a multi-million-dollar sports contract or a lottery ticket or some massive tech buyout is incredibly, incredibly low.
How low are we talking?
The text puts it at less than 1 in 4,000.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
But contrast that with the odds of becoming a millionaire household via steady, disciplined accumulation. That sits at about 3.5 in 100.
Wow. So 3.5 in 100 versus 1 in 4,000.
Yeah, it is a vastly more probable path.
There is immense psychological comfort in those numbers. I mean, it means you don't need a wealthy uncle to die and leave you an estate, and you don't need to invent the next big app in your garage.
Right, you don't have to be a genius.
The path to financial independence is highly accessible to the average person. But the catch is it requires a level of just mundane consistency that most people simply aren't willing to sustain.
Mundane consistency is the absolute perfect way to describe it. The text actually builds a profile of the prototypical millionaire, and it is strikingly unglamorous.
Okay, paint the picture for me. What do they look like?
Okay, so they are typically an entrepreneur or small business owner. They have lived in the exact same town for their entire adult life.
Not jet-setting around?
Nope. They get married, they stay married to the exact same person, and above all else, they are compulsive savers. They are just playing a very long, multi-decade game of compounding interest and incredibly low overhead.
That sounds boring.
It is boring, and that's why it works.
So how do they actually do it, though? Like, what are the mechanics? Because the researchers didn't just look at balance sheets here. They conducted over 500 face-to-face interviews and surveyed over 11,000 high-net-worth individuals to figure out the specific behavioral traits that actually lead to wealth.
Yeah, they distilled all of that massive amount of data down into 7 foundational characteristics, 7 factors of wealth accumulation.
Okay, let's go through them because this is kind of the meat of the chapter. What's number 1?
The baseline, the very first factor that essentially enables everything else, is that they live well below their means. This is the ultimate defensive strategy of wealth building.
It goes right back to the leaky bucket. It doesn't matter how powerful your offense is, how much you earn, if your defense is terrible and you spend it all you lose. Living well below your means creates this sort of artificial scarcity in your life.
Yes, artificial scarcity. That's exactly it.
You basically force yourself to live on a fraction of what you actually make, and you immediately route the rest into investments before you can even see it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Which naturally leads directly to the second factor. They allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently in ways that are specifically conducive to building wealth.
Time, energy, and money. We usually just think about budgeting money, but budgeting time is equally critical here.
Oh, totally.
Because there is a massive hidden cost to managing luxury goods. Like, think about it. If you were spending your weekends researching the best deal on a luxury car lease or, managing the upkeep on a massive sprawling house you don't even fully use, that is time and mental energy. You aren't spending researching market trends or building a side business or just managing your investment portfolio.
Right. It's a holistic approach to resource management. Every hour spent maintaining the appearance of wealth is an hour practically stolen from actually building true wealth.
That makes so much sense.
And this ties directly into the third factor, which I think is fascinating. They believe that financial independence is vastly more important than displaying high social status.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because I imagine this is where most modern Americans completely fail.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We are relentlessly wired to show off our success. From the curated vacations on social media to stretching our budgets to live in the right zip code. What does it actually take for these individuals to rewire their psychology so they prioritize a hidden, invisible bank account over a visible, shiny status symbol?
It requires a really profound detachment of ego from material possessions. The people who successfully build wealth have cultivated the internal validation necessary to look average or honestly even poor to their neighbors.
They just don't care what the neighbors think.
Exactly. They don't care. They draw their self-esteem from their balance sheet, which no one else can see, rather than their wardrobe or their vehicle, which everyone evaluates every day.
That's so hard.
It's incredibly hard. It takes active daily discipline to just accept that society might judge you as less successful than you actually are simply because you refuse to play the signaling game.
Right. You have to be totally comfortable being the secret millionaire next door while the guy across the street with the huge mortgage secretly pities you for driving a used 10-year-old sedan.
Let him pity you. You're the one with financial freedom.
That takes serious, serious mental fortitude. But it also brings up a huge tension point, which the researchers identify as the fourth factor. And this one is wild. It's about family money and this concept of economic outpatient care.
Oh, yeah. Economic outpatient care, or EOC. This is arguably one of the most fascinating behavioral dynamics the researchers uncovered in the whole study.
So what exactly is it?
EOC refers to the practice of parents constantly bailing out or financially subsidizing the lifestyle of their adult children.
Okay, I can see how this happens, though. It has to be incredibly tempting. Like, if you've spent decades aggressively building this wealth, living below your means, you naturally want your kids to have the best right.
Of course.
You want to help with the down payment on the big house, or maybe you pay for the grandkids' private schools, or fund the luxury family vacations.
Right. The intention is almost always rooted in love and wanting to provide. But the data shows it actually fundamentally weakens the adult child's ability to accumulate their own wealth.
Because they get used to the handout.
Exactly. By injecting cash into their lives, the parents artificially inflate the child's lifestyle way beyond what they can actually independently sustain on their own income.
So they never learn how to budget.
Right. It completely removes the necessity of aggressive saving. It creates a dependency on an external fire hose of cash. And the data shows that the most successful wealth accumulators usually had to figure it out entirely on their own. Their parents did not provide economic outpatient care.
So basically, by cutting them off, or rather, I guess, never turning the tap on in the first place, you're actually saving them financially.
You're teaching them survival.
Which brings us right to the fifth factor. The millionaire's own adult children are economically self-sufficient.
Right. Because these self-made millionaires didn't receive that subsidization themselves, they deeply understand its dangers, so they actively break the cycle, or they never start it.
They don't provide EOC to their kids.
No, they don't. They teach frugality and independence by example, rather than transferring this kind of generational dependency.
And that has to be tough love sometimes.
It is, but it's effective.
All right, so they have the defense completely locked down. They save, they don't buy status symbols, they don't spoil their adult kids. But how are they actually generating the capital in the first place? Because you still need a fence.
Right, you still need income. So the sixth factor notes that they are highly proficient in targeting market opportunities.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It speaks to the observant, very pragmatic entrepreneurial nature of the millionaire next door. They aren't usually chasing the hottest new tech trend or trying to launch a flashy startup.
They aren't in Silicon Valley.
No, they look for inefficiencies, unglamorous needs in the local market, and they just position themselves to fill those needs quietly and efficiently.
Which flows perfectly into the seventh and final factor.
Yeah.
They chose the right occupation. And I love this part because in this context, right definitely doesn't mean glamorous or high status.
No, not at all.
The data reveals that millionaires often own what the researchers literally call dull normal businesses.
Dull normal. I love that term. What's a dull normal business? Oh, we're talking welding contractors, auctioneers, pest controllers, mobile home park owners, paving contractors.
Paving contractors. No one is making a slick Hollywood movie about a paving contractor.
No, they're not.
But that guy is the one funding his grandkids' college entirely in cash. Why do these specific boring businesses work so incredibly well for wealth accumulation?
Because they completely lack flashy competition. Highly educated, status-driven individuals generally don't want to start a pest control business, right? It doesn't sound prestigious at a dinner party.
Right, you can't brag about rats.
Exactly. And venture capital money isn't exactly pouring in to disrupt the local auctioneer. So these dull normal businesses provide incredibly stable, highly profitable niches.
They just hum along, making money.
Yeah, they generate very steady cash flow without requiring massive overhead. And crucially, the owners aren't pressured by their industry peers to maintain some kind of corporate high-status appearance.
So building wealth, then, isn't just a matter of, picking the right stock
Mhm.
or asking for a 5% raise at work. It is a holistic, all-encompassing lifestyle choice.
It's an entire mindset.
It requires intentional, constant trade-offs regarding your time, your energy, your ego, and obviously your consumption habits. You literally can't just earn your way into true wealth if your lifestyle scales up every single time your paycheck
I
does.
know, you just get stuck on the treadmill.
True wealth in America isn't this loud, visible display of high social status that we see on TV. It is a quiet, hidden foundation of relentless self-discipline and hyper-efficient resource allocation.
They're essentially the ultimate defensive players in the game of capitalism.
I love that,
They have
yes.
completely mastered the art of keeping capital rather than just acting as a conduit, right?
Yeah.
Like generating a massive income only to just immediately pass it along to luxury car dealerships and mortgage lenders.
The millionaire next door is wealthy precisely because they refuse to act like society's caricature of a millionaire. It's so profound when you actually let it sink in. So for everyone listening, as you drive to work tomorrow or go to the grocery store, take a moment to really look at the cars on the highway around you. Think about all that expensive metal just rapidly depreciating on the asphalt and all those massive monthly payments quietly draining away everyone's future security.
Yeah.
And just ask yourself, are you building your life to look rich, to complete strangers at a red light, or to actually be wealthy when you finally get home?
That is the ultimate question.
Now that we know true wealth is quietly hiding all around us, it raises a pretty fascinating question. What does this hidden millionaire actually look like up close? Well, next time we'll meet the millionaire next door face to face and uncover why the person wearing a $399 off-the-rack suit might just be the wealthiest person in the room. So picture a scene for me.
Okay.
You've got two people standing side by side.
Right.
And on the left, there's a trust officer.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing this perfectly custom tailored suit, a $5,000 watch gleaming on his wrist, and he just pulled up in a brand new imported luxury sedan,
Naturally.
right? And then on the right, you have a guy in a well-worn buckskin shirt
Yeah.
and a pair of faded jeans. He drove up in a 10-year-old domestic car. And honestly, if you didn't know any better, you'd probably mistake him for a truck driver.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, a group of British investors actually did exactly that when they came to town to meet him. So here's the bold question to kick off our deep dive today. Which one of these two individuals is the actual millionaire?
Well, I mean, it's the ultimate setup, right? Because it plays directly into basically all of our deepest cultural biases.
Yeah.
Everything we are conditioned to believe by television, by advertising, just by societal expectations.
Right.
It all screams that the trust officer is the wealthy one because he possesses all the artifacts of success, you know.
But watch the car.
Exactly. But the reality completely shatters that illusion. The guy in the buckskin shirt, he's a multimillionaire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he owns a highly successful business rebuilding large diesel engines. And the trust officer in the luxury car, I mean, comparatively speaking, he is practically broke.
What, really?
Yeah, he generates a high income, certainly, but his actual accumulated wealth is totally negligible.
And that profound disconnect between income and wealth, I mean, that is our mission today. We're taking a deep dive into this massive stack of research and data, specifically focusing on the chapter, Meet the Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah, it's such a crucial chapter.
It really is. And our goal is to extract the absolute core of how wealth is actually built and maintained in America. Because if you want to know who truly holds the capital, you kind of have to stop looking at the big hats and start counting the cattle.
I love that phrase.
Right. That's a phrase straight from our buckskin-wearing diesel mechanic.
Yeah.
He told the researchers, I think the quote was, "I don't own big hats, but I have a lot of cattle."
It's just a brilliant metaphor. It perfectly encapsulates the entire thesis of this data.
Yeah.
Because what we're exposing here are the mathematical realities and the deeply unglamorous everyday habits of America's first-generation rich.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone out there who's interested in business or entrepreneurship or just securing unshakable financial independence, this material is basically the ultimate blueprint.
Absolutely.
What this research proves is that true wealth is rarely about what you spend or what you display. It's almost entirely about the highly disciplined and often invisible choices you make behind the scenes.
Okay, let's unpack this whole big hat, no cattle syndrome, because it kind of forces us to redefine the very word wealthy.
It really does.
Like society at large defines wealth as having an abundance of material possessions. You know, if you have a sprawling estate, a boat, a closet full of designer clothes, you're wealthy.
Right. That's the perception.
But the people in this data set, the actual millionaires, they define wealth as financial independence. It's owning appreciating assets. It's a foundational bedrock, not a billboard.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you look at the statistical profile of the prototypical American millionaire drawn from this survey data, the image is just jarringly mundane.
Really? How so?
Well, we're talking about a 57-year-old individual, usually married, and typically to the same person for most of their adult life.
Which is pretty rare these days.
It is, but financially staying married is a huge asset. Divorce totally splits and destroys wealth.
Oh, for sure.
But here's the crazy part. They live in a home valued at around $320,000. And the most striking data point here is that about half of them have occupied that exact same home for more than 20 years.
See, I have to pause on that because it completely flies in the face of the traditional property ladder concept.
Right.
Like the cultural expectation is that your housing should scale linearly with your income. Right?
Exactly.
You hit a new tax bracket, you upgrade, you move from the starter home to the suburbs, then maybe to the gated community, then to the sprawling estate. But you're saying these individuals are deliberately staying put.
They stay put because they implicitly understand the hidden friction of upgrading.
Interesting. What do you mean by hidden friction?
Well, every time you move to a more expensive neighborhood, you aren't just taking on a larger mortgage.
Right.
You're taking on an entirely new ecosystem of consumption.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The property taxes increase, the maintenance costs increase, but more insidiously, your social reference group changes.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. Suddenly, you're surrounded by neighbors who are driving newer cars, wearing nicer brands, they're sending their kids to more expensive schools, and the pressure to match that consumption becomes overwhelming for most people.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So by staying in a modest home for 2 decades, these millionaires anchor their social expectations to a much lower consumption level.
Which perfectly explains the next statistic in the research, which is that these millionaires live on less than 7% of their total wealth.
Yeah, less than 7%. It's incredible.
They are actively suppressing their lifestyle overhead. And the payoff for that suppression is what the source refers to as a go-to-hell fund.
Yes. The go-to-hell fund.
I love that term. Because they live so far below their means, they've accumulated enough wealth to live without working for 10, sometimes 20 years.
And that concept of the go-to-hell fund, it represents the ultimate psychological freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about the leverage it provides in basically every aspect of life. If you have that fund, you're immune to the panic of corporate downsizing.
Right.
You can walk away from a toxic business partner. You can fire a nightmare client. Or simply refuse to compromise your ethics just to keep a paycheck.
Because you don't actually need the money tomorrow.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with someone who's living a high-consumption lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
They're spending every dime they make just to maintain the appearance of wealth. Yeah. They can never tell anyone to go to hell. They are perpetually trapped. They're held hostage by their own overhead.
It's wild that we judge a professional's competence by the artifacts they purchase, effectively forcing them into that trap.
It's a huge problem.
I see this all the time.
Yeah.
If you're a wealth manager or a corporate litigator or even a high-end real estate agent, there is this immense unspoken pressure to look the part.
Oh, absolutely.
You feel compelled to lease the $80,000 European sports car or wear the bespoke suit, just so your clients trust your competence.
Right.
We literally force certain professionals to impoverish their future selves just to look successful enough to do their jobs today.
We do. And it's a dynamic heavily reinforced by the broader economic machine, particularly the advertising industry.
Advertising plays a huge role.
The messaging is just relentless. It tells us that success equals hyperconsumption.
Right.
But the true Millionaire Next Door systematically rejects that premise. And a massive component of that rejection actually comes down to the household partnership. Oh, this part is fascinating.
Yeah, the data places a huge emphasis on the role of the spouse. In the vast majority of these wealth-accumulating households, the spouse, which is often the wife, in this specific demographic study, is a meticulous, ruthless budgeter.
And their professional backgrounds are super interesting, too. The #1 occupation for the millionaire wives who work outside the home is teaching.
Yeah.
Not high-powered corporate litigators, not investment bankers. teachers.
And I mean, it makes perfect sense when you analyze the skill set required for teaching.
Right, because it's not about a massive income.
Exactly. It demands extreme organization, planning, patience, and resource allocation.
Yeah.
These households operate on a shared, unified philosophy that charity begins at home. They plan their expenditures, they budget meticulously, and they are just fiercely conservative with their capital outflow.
So the practical takeaway from this first block of data is almost painfully simple, but I think it's incredibly hard for people to execute in the real world.
Oh, absolutely.
Stop trying to look rich.
Yeah. Every single dollar you spend on displaying status to your neighbors or your peers or your clients, that is a dollar stolen directly from your own financial independence.
And the word stolen is really appropriate there. It is a theft from your future autonomy.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a really fascinating shift in the data, which is where these millionaires are actually generating their capital.
Right. Because everyone assumes it's one thing.
Exactly. When the average person thinks of a self-made millionaire today, their mind immediately defaults to Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We picture some 20-something tech founder who created a disruptive app, got tons of venture funding, and, sold it for $1 billion.
Or a crypto visionary or some prominent influencer. But the research shows that is actually a massive statistical anomaly.
It is.
The actual path to wealth is overwhelmingly dominated by what the authors call dull, normal businesses.
Yes. The statistics on this are just staggering. What's fascinating here is that self-employed people make up less than 20% of the American workforce.
Oh.
Yet they account for a massive 2/3 of all millionaires.
Wow, 2/3?
Yeah, and as you noted, they aren't building glamorous tech startups. The data shows they are welding contractors.
Yep.
They are auctioneers, they're rice farmers, owners of mobile home parks, paving contractors, and pest controllers.
Pest controllers. I love this detail so much because it is the absolute antithesis of glamour.
Oh, completely.
Nobody goes to a cocktail party and brags about their lucrative rat extermination empire.
No, definitely not.
But there is a very specific structural reason why these dull, normal industries are such incredible wealth generators, right?
Yeah, if we connect this to the broader economic picture, it really comes down to market dynamics and sociology.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, glamorous industries like tech, entertainment, high fashion, boutique marketing, they attract hyper competition.
Right. Everybody wants to be the next Steve Jobs or whatever.
Exactly. Everyone wants the prestige associated with those fields. But that flood of entrants drives down profit margins, and it drastically increases the failure rate.
Makes sense.
Dull, normal industries attract far less competition. I mean, very few top-tier MBA graduates are clamoring to get into the scrap metal business or commercial janitorial services.
So you have this moat built purely out of boredom and lack of prestige.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
And beyond the lack of competition, there's a sociological advantage, too. Like, if you are a paving contractor, you don't face that status tax we talked about earlier.
Right.
You don't need a corner office with glass walls to impress your asphalt vendors.
No, you definitely don't.
You don't need a bespoke suit to inspect a mobile home park. The lack of status display requirements in dull, normal industries allows the owners to quietly and efficiently hoard their profits.
It really is the ultimate stealth wealth vehicle. You operate in a space nobody else is paying attention to, providing an essential, unsexy service, and you just quietly stack cash while driving a heavy-duty pickup truck.
It's brilliant.
But the data reveals a really complex, almost contradictory layer to these business owners when we look at how they treat the next generation.
Oh, yeah, this part.
Yeah, there is a fascinating gender dynamic in how these first-generation millionaires view their children's economic prospects.
This part of the research totally stopped me in my tracks.
I know, it's surprising.
Because these self-made, tough-minded business owners, they often feel that their daughters are economically handicapped in the job market compared to their sons.
Mm-hmm.
They perceive this systemic bias, where men have the deck of economic cards stacked in their favor, making significantly more money even within the exact same occupational categories.
Right. And because of that deeply held perception, the data shows these incredibly frugal parents will often gladly subsidize their adult daughter's lifestyle.
Which is so out of character for them.
It really is. They will provide financial support, they'll help buy homes or supplement income, while simultaneously expecting their sons to completely fend for themselves in the marketplace.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this on behalf of the listener, because that sounds incredibly regressive.
It does.
Are these self-made millionaire entrepreneurs really just defaulting to 1950s gender roles, coddling their daughters and throwing their sons to the wolves?
It definitely looks regressive on the surface, but the researchers frame it as an act of cold, intense pragmatism from the perspective of the parents.
Pragmatism, how?
Well, these are individuals who built their wealth by reading markets and calculating odds, right?
Yeah.
In their view, they are simply adjusting for a macroeconomic disadvantage they believe their daughters face.
Ah, I see.
It isn't about coddling to them. To them, it's about leveling a playing field that they view as inherently tilted.
Interesting.
And whether we agree with that sociology or not, it dictates massive wealth transfer behaviors in these families.
And speaking of their kids, another pragmatic quirk is that they rarely encourage their children to take over the dull, normal family business.
Right, which is also counterintuitive.
Totally. You would think a successful welding contractor would want to pass that empire down to their kid. Instead, they steer their kids toward becoming credentialed professionals, specifically lawyers, tax advisors, and accountants.
And this is a highly calculated pivot.
Why do they do that?
The first generation takes the brutal entrepreneurial risk in a dull normal field to build the foundational capital.
Okay.
They then use that capital to educate the second generation, deliberately positioning them in insulated, high-status professions.
But why those specific professions?
Because the demographic data shows the affluent population is growing. There are over 3.5 million millionaire households out there.
Right.
The smart, long-term play is to position your children to provide specialized, high-billing services to that growing, wealthy population.
Oh, that is so smart. They're essentially setting their kids up to serve as the exact demographic they themselves belong to.
Exactly.
So the practical takeaway for an aspiring entrepreneur listening to this is remarkably clear.
Very clear.
Look for the unsexy, essential service gaps in the market. Avoid the glamorous, highly competitive fields that everyone else is flocking to. If you want a higher statistical probability of building wealth, you are far better off starting a regional plumbing supply company than trying to launch the next disruptive social media app.
The math strongly supports that conclusion.
Speaking of the math, we keep talking about living below your means in these dull, normal businesses. But below your means is an incredibly subjective phrase.
It really is. It means something different to everyone.
Right. How does a paving contractor or a middle manager actually know if they are hoarding enough cash to be considered wealthy?
Well, this is where the source material is so good, because it provides a brilliant objective formula to answer exactly that.
Yes, the pause and UAWs.
Exactly. It categorizes everyone into two distinct camps: pause and UAWs. And this equation is perhaps the most actionable, unsparing takeaway from the entire study.
I love how blunt it is.
Me too. It strips away all the emotion, all the excuses about, cost of living or industry standards.
Oh, everybody has an excuse, but I live in New York, or whatever.
Right. It forces you to look at cold, hard numbers. So a PA stands for a prodigious accumulator of wealth. A UAW is an underaccumulator of wealth.
Okay.
The baseline formula to determine where you should be is this: multiply your age by your realized pre-tax annual household income. Then divide that number by 10.
Okay. Age times pre-tax income divided by 10.
Exactly. The result is your expected net worth.
So let's run a hypothetical to make this concrete for everyone listening. Say I'm 40 years old.
Okay.
My household is doing reasonably well, pulling in $120,000 a year in gross income.
Nice round numbers.
Right. So 40 times 120 is 4.8 million. Divide by 10. 480,000.
Correct.
You're telling me I should have nearly $500,000 in net worth just to be considered average?
Yep. That 480,000 is merely the baseline expectation for your age and income bracket.
Wow.
To be considered a PAW, a true prodigious accumulator of wealth who is actively building financial independence, you need to be worth twice that expected number. Oh, wow. So in my scenario, I would need a net worth of $960,000.
Exactly. Almost $1 million. On the flip side, a UAW is someone worth half of their expected number or less.
Okay.
So if our 40-year-old earning 120 is worth $240,000 or less, they are officially an under-accumulator of wealth.
That is brutal.
It is.
And the source grounds this formula in a really painful, real-world comparison between two specific individuals: Bubba and James.
Oh, this is the best example.
It really is. Bubba is a mobile home dealer. James Ford is a highly educated attorney. Both of these guys are roughly 50 years old.
Right.
And both are pulling in almost the exact same income, hovering right around $90,000 to $92,000 a year in the context of this data.
Yep, income is equal.
But when we look at their balance sheets, the divergence is shocking. Bubba has a net worth of $1.1 million. He is a massive paw.
Huge paw.
James, the lawyer, has a net worth of $226,000. He's a textbook UAW. And this comparison, it just perfectly isolates the variable of lifestyle overhead.
But wait, let's scrutinize James for a second.
Let's do it.
James spent 4 years in undergrad.
Mm?
He spent 3 years in law school. He passed the bar.
He's smart.
Right. He's billing hundreds of dollars an hour. He has access to better financial networks and presumably way better investment advice than a mobile home dealer.
You would think so, yeah.
So how on earth is he losing so badly to Bubba when they have the exact same cash flow?
James is losing because of the massive, often invisible tax of upper middle class maintenance.
Maintenance. It's like he's a machine.
Basically, I mean, think about the daily financial bleed of James's life.
Okay.
Because he's an attorney, his peers, his partners, and his clients expect him to live in a certain zip code.
Right. You can't be a successful lawyer and live in a tiny apartment.
Exactly. And that requires a massive mortgage. He feels compelled to buy or lease an imported luxury car so he doesn't look unsuccessful in the firm's parking lot.
Oh, yeah. The parking lot judgment is real.
It is. He likely needs a country club membership to network and bring in clients.
Yeah.
He has to wear expensive suits. He has to furnish his home with high-end brands for dinner parties.
Right.
His occupational status acts as a relentless vacuum on his income.
The status tax strikes again.
Yeah.
James is practically forced to pour almost all of his $92,000 into depreciating assets and social signaling just to maintain the illusion of his status.
Precisely.
Meanwhile, Bubba operates with zero social friction.
Zero. If Bubba drives a 10-year-old Ford pickup truck, his customers at the mobile home park don't bat an eye.
In fact, they probably trust him more for it.
Oh, absolutely. If Bubba lives in a modest, middle-class house and shops at regular department stores, it perfectly aligns with his social and occupational expectations.
Yeah.
Because Bubba has no upper-middle-class maintenance costs, he can take a massive percentage of his $90,000 income and route it directly into appreciating assets, investments, and savings.
It really hits home when you realize that high income does not equal high wealth.
No, they're totally different things.
You can be earning a massive top-tier paycheck, but if your lifestyle overhead consumes every single cent, you aren't wealthy.
Right.
You are essentially just a highly paid clerk, briefly holding on to money as it passes from your employer directly to the bank, the luxury car dealership, and the mortgage lender.
It's a sobering realization for a lot of high earners.
Which makes the takeaway here imperative for anyone listening. Do the math on your own life today.
Yes, do the math.
Run your age and your income through that formula. Are you a PAW or are you a UAW? Because if you are a UAW, your overhead is literally eating your future.
And realizing that your overhead is a choice, it leads us directly into another major societal illusion we need to dismantle.
Oh, what's that?
The myth of where wealth comes from in the first place.
Oh, right, the Mayflower myth.
Exactly. There is a deeply entrenched belief in American culture, what the researchers call the myth of the Mayflower, that wealth is primarily inherited. It's the idea that the capital belongs to the earliest settlers, the old money families of New England, and that the game is essentially rigged from birth.
It's a very comforting myth for people who aren't wealthy.
Oh, incredibly comforting.
Because it completely removes personal agency. If the game is rigged by inheritance, you don't have to feel bad about your own financial habits.
Yeah, you can just say, well, I wasn't born into it.
Exactly.
Well,
but the data absolutely destroys this narrative. 80% of millionaires in America are first-generation rich.
Yep.
Let me repeat that because I think it's the most important statistic in the book. 80%. Over half of the millionaires surveyed never received even one single dollar in inheritance.
It really is wild. It proves that the economy is remarkably fluid, rewarding specific behaviors basically regardless of pedigree.
Right.
But the data gets truly fascinating when the researchers broke down millionaire concentration by ancestry.
Yes, this blew my mind.
If the Mayflower myth were true, you would expect people of English ancestry to absolutely dominate the millionaire rankings per capita.
But they don't.
No, they don't.
English ancestry ranks 4th in millionaire concentration.
Yep.
The group holding the #1 spot is Russian ancestry. We're talking about an estimated 22 out of every 100 households headed by someone of Russian ancestry having a net worth of $1 million or more.
It's just astounding.
It is. Following them, Scottish ancestry is number 2, and Hungarian ancestry is number 3.
Right. Russian, Scottish, and Hungarian. These are largely immigrant populations. They are far removed from the old money establishment.
Definitely.
And the Scottish secret, in particular, is highly eliminating.
What's their secret?
Well, they make up a tiny fraction of American households, but they are massively overrepresented in the millionaire category. And crucially, it is not because they are all high-income earners.
Right, that's the key. They have a much higher number of wealthy households than can be explained by their income alone.
Exactly. Their secret is extreme generational frugality.
How does that look in practice?
Well, they live in self-designed environments of relative scarcity. If a Scottish ancestry household in this data set earns $100,000 a year, they will often purposely constrain their consumption to a level typical for a household earning only $85,000.
Wow.
They artificially create scarcity, and that frees up substantial capital to save and invest.
It's basically a cultural transmission of thrift and discipline.
Exactly. They insulate themselves from the American hyperconsumption machine.
It reminds me of the behavioral case study in the text comparing Toddy and Alex.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
It's a brilliant juxtaposition. Toddy is your classic Mayflower descendant. English ancestry, went to an exclusive New England prep school, played varsity sports at a prestigious university.
The whole package.
Right. He's a corporate VP who firmly believes that true wealth is something you inherit, something you are born into.
Yep.
Then you have Alex. Alex's father immigrated from Russia. Alex went to a state university, started his own unglamorous business from scratch, and operated with ruthless efficiency and extreme frugality.
And the combination of that case study is just perfect. Right.
Alex, the self-made first-generation Russian-American entrepreneur, ends up accumulating so much capital that he buys the entire corporation that employs Toddy.
It's poetic.
It really is a perfect encapsulation of how fluid wealth actually is. It moves away from high-consuming inherited classes and toward highly disciplined producers.
But there's a dark side to this fluidity, too.
Yeah, unfortunately there is.
The data shows that wealth rarely survives past the second or third generation in America. Like the first generation builds it, and the subsequent generations squander it.
Right.
And the mechanism behind that rapid dissipation is a phenomenon the authors call the victor trap.
Yes, the victor trap. It is perhaps the most tragic element of this research because it is a paradox born entirely out of love.
How so?
Well, Victor is the archetype of the hardworking immigrant, right? He comes to America, starts a scrap metal business, works 14-hour days, lives incredibly frugally, and eventually achieves the American dream by becoming a self-made millionaire.
A total success story. But then he makes a fatal psychological miscalculation regarding his children.
Because he wants a better life for his kids. Right?
Exactly. He remembers the brutal winters hauling scrap metal, and he doesn't want his children to suffer that same physical toll.
Understandable.
Of course. So he encourages them to go to college, to get advanced degrees, to become doctors or corporate executives.
But by doing this, Victor unknowingly strips his children of the exact crucible that made him successful.
That's the tragic part. He removes the pressure, the scarcity, and the entrepreneurial friction.
Yeah.
He equates a better life with better artifacts, nicer homes, luxury cars, elite social circles. He inadvertently Americanizes his kids into a culture of hyperconsumption.
Now, wait, I struggle with this framing a bit.
Okay, why?
Are the authors seriously suggesting that Victor shouldn't send his kids to college? Like, that goes against the most fundamental tenet of the American dream. Education is supposed to be the great equalizer, the fail-safe for the next generation. We just said a few minutes ago that millionaires steer their kids to become lawyers and accountants.
Right. It's a vital distinction to make here. The data isn't saying education is bad.
Okay.
The problem isn't the degree. The problem is the subsidy of the high-status lifestyle that usually accompanies it.
Ah, the subsidy.
Yes. When Victor subsidizes his children's lives, allowing them to postpone employment while they get multiple degrees, and then helps them buy their first house in a wealthy zip code, he sets them up for failure.
Because they haven't earned it.
Exactly. Once they have those high-status jobs, they fall right into the trap of James the lawyer.
Oh, the UAW trap.
Yes. They have immense upper-middle-class maintenance costs, and because Victor shielded them from financial discipline, they totally lack the frugality muscle.
Right.
Victor the Paw essentially uses his hard-earned wealth to breed a generation of high-earning, high-spending UAWs.
So it's not the education that dooms them. It's the subsidized luxury that removes the discipline of scarcity.
You nailed it.
When you remove the financial struggle and replace it with a parental safety net, you basically cripple the next generation's ability to generate and sustain their own capital.
Exactly. The environment of scarcity isn't a bug in the wealth-building process. It is the essential feature that creates the millionaire mind.
It is the defining feature.
It really is.
So what does this all mean for us? Like, if we step back and synthesize everything we've unpacked from this deep dive into the data, the soul of this chapter reveals a really profound, almost comical irony.
And what's that?
The people in our society who look the most like millionaires, the ones with the tailored suits, the imported cars, the massive houses, they are usually the furthest from it.
So true.
They are trapped in this endless treadmill of earning to spend. True wealth, the kind of wealth that buys absolute freedom and security, is practically invisible.
Yeah, it operates entirely in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
It's built in the quiet, unglamorous margins of dull, normal businesses, is guarded fiercely by a lifestyle of extreme, calculated frugality. And it thrives exactly in those demographic spaces where the societal pressure to look rich simply doesn't exist. Being a millionaire isn't about having the capacity to buy whatever you want.
Yeah.
It is about cultivating the discipline to know exactly what you do not need to buy.
It's the ultimate reframe of success. And I want to leave everyone listening with a provocative thought to mull over, one that builds on everything we've discussed but kind of pushes it into our modern reality.
Oh, I like where this is going.
This data was collected before the explosion of social media and hyperconnectivity.
Right, totally different era.
Think about how hard it was for James, the lawyer, to avoid the status tax back then, just based on his physical neighborhood and his office parking lot.
Oh, it was difficult enough just keeping up with the physical neighbors.
Exactly. Now, ask yourself, how much harder is the Victor trap to avoid today when the neighborhood is a global algorithmic feed of curated luxury?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The pressure to display status isn't just at the country club anymore. It's in your pocket 24/7.
That's terrifying, actually.
Right. In a world where visibility is highly monetized, is extreme frugality and stealth wealth becoming a lost art? Or is it becoming the ultimate, rare superpower?
It's a fascinating question, and it really completely changes the stakes of how you view modern success.
Absolutely.
If true millionaires reject high-consumption lifestyles, even under modern pressures, the next logical question is, how exactly are they managing their cash flow day-to-day to defend against it?
Right.
We will explore the specific mechanics of how the wealthy defend their capital from the ultimate trap of hyperconsumption in our next deep dive into the extreme frugality of the millionaire mind.
Until then, remember our two guys from the beginning.
Oh yeah, the trust officer and the mechanic.
Next time you see someone in a faded buckskin shirt driving a 10-year-old pickup truck, don't be so quick to judge. He just might have a lot more cattle than the guy in the suit.
So, if you invited a room full of decamillionaires, people worth over $10 million over for a dinner party, what do you think you'd serve them? Like vintage 1970 Bordeaux and, I don't know, gourmet caviar? Or free Budweiser and crackers?
Well, I mean, you'd naturally assume that a $10 million net worth, demands a $10 million palate, right?
Right, exactly.
The expectation is always that extreme wealth comes with this hyper-refined, highly expensive taste in basically everything from food to leisure.
Yeah, we picture the yachts, the private chefs, just, the absolute peak of culinary luxury. But the data we're diving into today completely shatters that whole Hollywood myth.
It really does.
Because today we are unpacking the classic wealth study, The Millionaire Next Door. Specifically, we're focusing on the chapter called Frugal, Frugal, Frugal.
Which is such a great title.
It is.
Okay.
And our mission for this deep dive is to basically figure out what highly successful people are actually doing when no one is watching them.
Right. Behind closed doors.
Exactly. And for anyone, building a business, an entrepreneurial venture, or just trying to secure their own financial independence, understanding this behavioral gap between the illusion of wealth and the actual reality of wealth is, it's arguably the most valuable lesson you can learn.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to really understand that gap, we have to look at how that dinner party scenario you mentioned actually played out in the real world.
Oh, right. This was an actual study, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The source material details this really fascinating study conducted by a large international trust company. And they were running focus groups. to study the specific needs of high net worth individuals,
Okay.
specifically targeting decamillionaires in the New York area. So to make these extremely wealthy participants feel at home, the organizers went all out. They rented this incredibly posh Manhattan penthouse on the East Side.
So they basically built a set designed for the wealthy characters they expect to just walk through the door.
They absolutely did. I mean, they hired 2 gourmet food designers. They curated this elaborate menu featuring like 4 different kinds of highly expensive pâté, 3 types of caviar.
Wow.
And they brought in a case of exceptional 1970 Bordeaux and a case of a 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon. So the entire environment was engineered to cater to what they thought was the ultimate luxury consumer.
And the beauty of this story, the absolute best part, is what happens when the actual millionaires arrive.
It's so good.
Right. So the very first guy to walk through the door is a first-generation millionaire. He built his wealth owning several really valuable pieces of commercial real estate, and the sources call him Mr. Bud.
Mr. Bud.
And Mr. Bud does not walk in wearing, a tailored Italian tuxedo. He arrives in a well-worn suit and this old practical overcoat.
Just a totally normal guy.
Yeah. And the organizers are eager to please their VIP guests, so they immediately offer to pour him a glass of that vintage 1970 Bordeaux.
And he looks completely bewildered by the offer.
Yeah.
He turns it down, and he just tells them, I drink scotch and 2 kinds of beer, free, and Budweiser.
Which is just such a brilliant, disarming response, like free and Budweiser.
It really is.
But it wasn't just him. Over the next 2 hours, 9 decamillionaires sat in that penthouse.
Yeah.
And out of those 9 people with a combined net worth approaching like $100 million, not a single one of them touched the pate.
Nope.
Not a single one drank the vintage wine. They spent the entire 2 hours just snacking on the plain gourmet crackers.
Just the crackers.
Yeah.
And, the punchline to the whole event is that the trust officers running the study,
Yeah, this is great.
right, these are the high-income earners who were essentially living paycheck to paycheck on a corporate salary. They ended up eating all the caviar and drinking the vintage wine themselves after the millionaires left.
Oh, man. Let's pause and actually look at the mechanics of what's happening here, because it exposes this massive discrepancy between societal expectations and financial reality.
It really highlights a huge blind spot.
Yeah, because we are constantly barraged with media narratives about the 20-something tech founder popping champagne in a nightclub, or the $5 million a year athlete dropping hundreds of thousands of dollars on a weekend getaway.
Right.
And we just internalize that as the definition of having money.
We do, but those individuals represent a statistical anomaly, and honestly, a really dangerous one at that.
How so?
Well, when you look at the balance sheets of many highly visible, high-income athletes or entertainers, you often find surprisingly low net worths.
Wait, really? Even with all those millions coming in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they earn massive amounts of capital, but they spend it just as quickly. You see, earning $5 million a year does not make you wealthy if your lifestyle burn rate is $5 million a year.
Right. That makes sense. The math doesn't work out.
That individual isn't financially independent at all. They're just sprinting on this very fast, very stressful, high-status treadmill. If the income stops tomorrow, the wealth evaporates instantly.
It reminds me of the psychology behind game shows, which the authors actually point out in the text. Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
When you watch a daytime quiz show, the audience goes wild for the camper van or the sports car or the quick 10 grand in cash.
Oh yeah, people are screaming, jumping up and down.
Right. But if a game show host enthusiastically announced, "Congratulations, you've just won an 8-year college tuition scholarship for your children that will compound in a tax-advantaged account over time."
The studio audience would probably boo.
They would. They'd be so disappointed because we're just wired for immediate, visible gratification.
The media industry understands that evolutionary wiring perfectly, too. They sell television time and magazine subscriptions by showing you the camper van.
Right. They give people what they want to see.
Exactly. They highlight the lottery winner and the overnight jackpot because it triggers our desire for a quick fix. If the media attempted to broadcast the reality of true wealth accumulation, their ratings would plummet.
Because the reality is incredibly mundane. I mean, the text introduces us to this guy, Johnny Lucas. He's a 57-year-old janitorial contractor.
Right, a janitor.
Yeah. He's been married to the same woman his entire adult life. He works long hours, he manages his equipment costs meticulously, he reviews his household budget, and he has just quietly accumulated a net worth of over $2 million.
And a reality television show following Johnny Lucas reviewing spreadsheets at his kitchen table would be canceled halfway through its pilot episode.
It would be the most boring show on television.
Inherently boring. But there is a deeper psychological mechanism at play here. It's not just that Johnny Lucas is boring to the average consumer. He is actively threatening to them.
Threatening. I want to dig into that word because it really touches on how we justify our own financial behaviors.
Think about the average American adult. They're likely carrying significant credit card debt, juggling a massive auto loan, and just feeling the constant pressure of inflation.
Yeah, living paycheck to paycheck, essentially.
Exactly. So if you present them with a narrative that true wealth is achieved through a sudden windfall, like a massive stock option payout, a lottery win, a record deal,
It lets them off the hook.
yes, it absolves them of responsibility. It allows them to say, well, I'm not rich because I haven't gotten lucky yet.
Ah, I see.
But if you present them with Johnny Lucas, who built $2 million by simply reducing his spending, maintaining a disciplined budget, and living below his means on a blue-collar income,
That completely shatters the illusion.
it does. It forces the viewer to confront the fact that their lack of wealth might be a direct result of their own daily choices.
It implies that the decision to lease that luxury SUV or, buy the bigger house is the exact reason they are financially stressed.
And people will go to great lengths to protect their ego from that realization. They would much rather believe you have to hit a grand slam to win the game, rather than accepting that the game is actually won by hitting consistent singles and, never striking out.
That is such a profound point, and I think this is why we have to fundamentally rewire our financial benchmarks.
Definitely.
Because we use media-hyped celebrities and highly visible consumers as our North Star for success, but true wealth is almost always invisible.
It's what you don't see.
Right. If you see someone driving a brand new Ferrari down the street, you actually have no idea if they are wealthy.
None at all.
The only mathematical certainty you have in that exact moment is that they have roughly $300,000 less than they did before they bought the car.
Or they have a massive new liability attached to their name.
Exactly. That idea of visible artifacts versus invisible wealth exposes this massive flaw in how we view the things we own.
It really does.
Because if these decamillionaires aren't blowing their capital on yachts, caviar, and exotic cars, we need to look at where the money isn't going on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that leads us straight into the closet. I call this the bespoke fallacy.
Oh, the wardrobe data. The economic data regarding what actual millionaires spend on their wardrobes is staggering.
It's wild.
Mostly because it contradicts everything we're taught about corporate success. If we were to poll 100 random people on the street and ask them to guess the maximum amount a typical American millionaire has ever spent on a business suit, the answers would likely range in the thousands.
Oh, totally. You immediately think of Savile Row, tailored Italian wool, custom fittings. You assume $2,000, $3,000, maybe $5,000.
The data reveals that the typical American millionaire's most expensive suit, the absolute maximum they have ever paid for a single suit in their entire life, is $399.
$399. That barely covers the sales tax on the suits we assume they are wearing.
It's incredible, right? The granularity of the data paints a very clear picture of utility over luxury.
Yeah.
Often, that $399 suit is a private brand purchased from a mid-tier department store like JCPenney.
JCPenney.
Yes, JCPenney. And it goes further. 50% of the millionaires surveyed have never paid more than $140 for a pair of shoes.
Oh, wow.
50% have never paid more than $235 for a wristwatch.
That completely dismantles the Rolex and designer shoe culture that just dominates professional networking and social media.
It really does. And the contrast between the actual wealthy and the high-income non-wealthy is where behavioral economics gets really interesting.
What's fascinating here is how the text provides this fantastic extreme example.
Oh, Don King.
Yes, boxing promoter Don King. There was a news story that highlighted a shopping trip where he purchased 110 pairs of shoes for over $64,000 at a single store.
That's just, I can't even fathom.
Right. That averages out to about $580 a pair, with one specific alligator pair costing $850.
And the data shows that only 1% of actual millionaires have ever paid that much for a single pair of shoes.
Exactly. But because Don King's shopping spree makes the headlines, young professionals are indoctrinated to think this is how successful people are supposed to behave.
Right. They see that and think, oh, that's what making it looks like.
Yeah.
We have to look at the demographics of the people who are actually keeping the bespoke tailors and high-end luxury brands in business.
If it's not the millionaires, who is it?
Well, for every one actual millionaire who owns a $1,000 suit, there are at least 6 owners of $1,000 suits who are definitively not millionaires.
So what does this all mean? Who is driving that entire luxury economy then?
It is predominantly driven by high-income earners who have failed to accumulate wealth. We are looking at corporate middle managers, junior partners at law firms, and high-commission sales professionals.
Ah, so people in high-pressure environments.
Exactly. These are individuals operating in highly competitive environments where they feel a psychological need to project a false level of superiority or success to their peers, their bosses, or their clients.
So they're using clothing as a signaling mechanism.
Precisely. And interestingly, the research shows that self-made millionaires spend significantly less on suits than people who inherited their wealth.
The psychology there makes perfect sense, though. I mean, the self-made millionaire, like our janitorial contractor, Johnny Lucas, he derives his confidence and status from his actual balance sheet.
Right. He knows what's in the bank.
Yeah. He knows what his net worth is, so he doesn't need a custom Italian suit to prove his validity to a stranger. He just needs to look clean and professional enough to run his business.
But the middle manager doesn't have the balance sheet to fall back on. He feels the pressure to dress for the job he wants and ends up spending his future wealth to look like he already has it today.
It's kind of tragic, honestly. The middle manager is confusing the artifacts of success with the actual mechanics of success.
That's a great way to put it. They are attempting to purchase the finish line without running the race.
The authors make such a sharp, practical observation about this behavior in the book. When you strip away the branding and the ego, a suit is just fabric.
Yeah.
A moth does not care if your wool suit costs $300 off the rack at a department store or $3,000 custom made in London.
Moths are not brand snobs.
No, they're equal opportunity eaters.
Yeah.
And a stray cigar ash will burn a hole through a bespoke jacket just as quickly as a cheap one. But most importantly, and this is the financial anchor of the whole concept, a suit is never going to generate capital gains.
Never.
It will never pay you a quarterly dividend.
And that is the core economic truth these millionaires understand. They view money strictly as a tool for generating more money. If you want to build lasting financial independence, you have to deploy your capital into appreciating assets, businesses, real estate, index funds, things that inherently grow in value over time.
Right.
Spending significant capital on depreciating artifacts that just hang in a dark closet is mathematically counterproductive to wealth accumulation. You dress to fulfill your functional professional needs, not to display a fabricated level of status.
This realization about clothing isn't just about saving a few $100s on wool, though. It points to a much deeper, overarching strategy for managing money.
It really exposes how we fundamentally misunderstand the relationship between income and wealth.
Yes. We assume that earning a high salary is the whole game, but the data shows that earning a lot of money is just playing offense.
The concept of the two-sided financial game is where we truly separate the high-income earners from the actual wealthy. Earning a massive income, bringing top-line revenue in the door, is playing great offense.
And you need that, obviously.
It is a vital component of the wealth equation. But playing phenomenal offense is completely neutralized if you lack intense frugality, which is your financial defense.
Let's use a sports analogy here to make this concrete, because the book touches on this, but we need to elevate it to see the financial mechanics at work.
Sure.
Imagine a basketball team that has the greatest shooters in the league. They score 100 points every single game without fail. That's a high-income earner playing great offense.
Okay, I followed.
But if their defense is non-existent and they give up 110 points to the opposing team every night, they will lose every single game of the season.
Mathematically guaranteed to lose.
Right. And in the financial world, the opposing team isn't just your desire to buy a nice car. The opposing team is progressive taxation, which takes a larger bite as your offense improves. The opposing team is inflation, silently eroding your purchasing power. And the opposing team is lifestyle creep, constantly demanding more points just to maintain the same standard of living.
That translates perfectly to the reality of the American economy. The landscape is littered with households playing incredible offense but terrible defense. A true millionaire plays both sides of the ball relentlessly.
Which brings us to a highly sensitive but critical factor in wealth accumulation.
The role of the spouse.
Yes, the spouse. Building an effective defense is almost impossible if you are fighting your own partner.
The sources highlight that accumulating wealth is rarely a solo endeavor. It requires a unified team effort. There was a great moment in the text where a self-made millionaire is being interviewed, and he happily complains to the researchers, "I can't get my wife to spend any money."
I love that. I can't get her to spend it.
It's framed as a complaint, but it's actually the secret to his entire net worth.
There is an even more striking anecdote about a couple that hit an incredible offensive milestone. The husband's company went public, and he gifted his wife $8 million in stock.
$8 million.
Right. This is the ultimate windfall event. It's the grand slam. How does she celebrate receiving $8 million in liquid wealth?
She smiles, expresses her gratitude, and immediately goes back to sitting at the kitchen table, meticulously clipping 50-cent food coupons from the Sunday paper.
Which is just mind-blowing for most people to hear.
Right,
Like, you have $8 million, why are you clipping a 50-cent coupon?
Exactly. But when asked about it, she simply stated, "It's how come we're well off today. Made a lot of trade-offs, sacrifices early in our marriage." Her defensive programming was so deeply ingrained that an $8 million offensive victory didn't even cause a blip in her behavior.
See, I want to push back on this idea that defense is absolutely mandatory if your offense is big enough.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let's say we have a modern dual-income family in a major tech hub, right? They are pulling in $500,000 a year in base salary, plus bonuses.
A very strong offense.
Very strong. But one partner is a massive spendthrift. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, constant upgrades to the house. Can't the high earners just out-earn the bad spending? If the offense is strong enough, does the defense really need to be that tight?
The math and the psychology both say no.
Really?
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a household divided cannot accumulate wealth, regardless of the top-line revenue.
Even at $500,000 a year.
Even then. First, from a mathematical standpoint, spending scales exponentially while income scales linearly. And income is heavily taxed before you can even spend it. Earning an extra $100,000 might only yield $50,000 or $60,000 in take-home pay, but a spendthrift spouse can easily expand the lifestyle burn rate by $100,000 in a matter of months.
Oh, that's true. It's so much faster to spend it.
Exactly. Hyperconsumption from even one partner completely obliterates the surplus cash that is desperately needed to invest in compounding assets.
Because of Parkinson's law of money, right? Expenses will always rise to meet the income available unless there is intentional friction applied.
Exactly. If the underlying philosophy of the household is to earn money in order to spend it, you are just turning up the speed on the treadmill. You get a promotion, you upgrade to a larger house with a massive mortgage, you get a year-end bonus, you immediately lease a European sports car.
So your defense is leaking capital just as fast as your offense is generating it.
Yes, and psychologically this creates immense friction. The partner grinding out the 80-hour weeks to generate the high income eventually resents the partner who is incinerating the capital on depreciating assets.
Oh, I can see that causing huge fights.
The marriage often fractures long before the bank account empties.
So it's not simply about having the ability to generate cash. You have to actively and aggressively protect that cash from your own behavioral impulses. Your defensive strategy, your systematic frugality, has to be just as disciplined as the effort you put into your career.
And that level of defense doesn't manifest purely through good intentions or vague desires to save more. The millionaires analyzed in the data aren't just generally careful with their money. They utilize a very specific tactical playbook to maintain their financial fitness.
Let's break down that playbook because the sources detail what they call the 4 questions of financial fitness.
Yes, these are crucial.
This moves us from the philosophical idea of frugality into the granular day-to-day habits that definitively separate the wealthy from the high-income earners who are secretly broke.
To illustrate this, the text introduces us to a woman named Mrs. Rule. She and her husband own a successful auctioneering and appraising company. Her annual realized income averages around $90,000.
Okay, so in today's economy, that is a solid middle-class income, but it's certainly not a massive offensive number.
No, not at all. Yet, her net worth is well over $2 million.
That is an astonishing ratio of wealth to income. Her defense must be impenetrable.
It is. The authors deliberately focus on her profession as an auctioneer because it gives her a front-row seat to the endgame of hyperconsumption.
Oh, because of what she appraises.
Right. Mrs. Rule regularly appraises estates for bankruptcies and foreclosures. She talks about the emotional trauma watching families stand in their front yards weeping as bidders walk away with their furniture, their cars, and their heirlooms because they leveraged themselves to the hilt and the income stopped.
Wow. She sees the absolute worst-case scenario of poor financial defense every single week.
Exactly, and it serves as a constant, sobering reminder to maintain her own frugality.
It's almost like a form of financial PTSD that keeps her disciplined. So how does she actually execute this defense? She filters her life through 4 key questions. Let's look at question 1. Does your household operate on a budget?
The statistical answer among the wealthy is overwhelmingly yes. The data shows that for every 100 millionaires who don't budget, there are 120 who do.
Okay.
But the methodology is what's truly important. Even the wealthy individuals who claim they don't use a strict spreadsheet budget utilize a behavioral workaround. They create an environment of artificial scarcity.
This is the pay yourself first model on steroids, isn't it?
Precisely. They mandate that a minimum of 15% of their annual realized income is immediately diverted into investments before they ever pay for a single lifestyle expense. Before the mortgage, before the groceries, before the country club dues.
They literally remove the capital from their checking account so their brain registers a lower available balance.
And they artificially restrict their own spending power, forcing themselves to live on the remainder.
It introduces immediate friction to spending. It's so smart.
Yeah.
Question 2 dives deeper into the awareness of that spending. Do you know exactly how much your family spends on food, clothing, and shelter each year?
Over 62% of the millionaire survey know this exact number down to the dollar.
Down to the dollar.
Yep. Conversely, only about 35% of high-income non-millionaires have any idea what their domestic burn rate is. A high-income corporate executive might know their annual mortgage payment simply because they need the number for their tax deductions.
Right.
But they are entirely blind to what they spend on restaurants, dry cleaning, premium cable packages, or random Amazon purchases.
Why do you think that blindness exists? I argue it's intentional cognitive dissonance.
How so?
High-income earners don't track the small expenses because they don't want to face the reality of the math. If you are making $400,000 a year, sitting down and realizing you are spending $45,000 a year on takeout food and luxury car leases is deeply embarrassing.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
It's easier to avoid the spreadsheet and just assume your high salary will always cover the structural leaks in your defense.
It's an avoidance tactic, absolutely. Yeah. Which makes question 3 so vital. Do you have a clearly defined set of daily, weekly, monthly, annual, and lifetime goals?
And Mrs. Rule has this dialed in.
She is incredibly specific about her vision. She wants to accumulate $5 million by the time she retires, and she constantly visualizes a scenario where she can pay for her grandchildren to graduate from college entirely debt-free.
That's a powerful motivator.
Right. Her goals aren't vague desires for more money. They are concrete, measurable outcomes that act as a filter for every single financial decision she makes today.
So every dollar she considers spending on a new car is weighed against the vision of her debt-free grandchildren. That makes it a lot easier to say no to the car.
Absolutely. And that leads to the final metric, question 4. Do you spend a lot of time planning your financial future?
The data proves that millionaires spend significantly more hours per month researching investments, consulting with tax advisors, and planning their asset allocation than high-income non-millionaires do.
And this intense focus on the unglamorous mechanics of money shows up in a very surprising place, their wallets.
Oh man, the credit card data in the source material completely blew my mind.
It runs entirely counter to the cultural narrative. If you picture a millionaire paying for dinner, you immediately visualize the heavy metal American Express Platinum card hitting the table, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. The heavy thud on the table. It's the ultimate symbol of financial arrival.
But the survey data reveals that only 6.2% of millionaire respondents actually hold an Amex Platinum card.
So if they aren't carrying the premium prestige cards, what is actually in their wallets?
They're drastically more likely to carry middle-market retail credit cards.
Like what?
A staggering 43% of the millionaires surveyed hold a Sears card, and 30% carry a JCPenney card.
A Sears card. The juxtaposition is incredible. You have millions in the bank, and you're paying with a JCPenney card.
It speaks entirely to utility. They're carrying cards that offer practical value for buying tools, household appliances, and basic clothing.
Right.
They are hyper-focused on managing their domestic consumption and maintaining their property. They are not interested in paying a massive annual fee just to flex a shiny platinum card at a restaurant. Their ego is entirely detached from their payment method.
There is an analogy the authors use here that I think is the most profound psychological insight in the entire chapter. Here's where it gets really interesting, because it perfectly explains why high-income earners fundamentally misunderstand the wealthy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the people you see out jogging in your neighborhood every single morning at 6 a.m., rain or shine.
You usually notice that those consistent early morning joggers are already in phenomenal physical shape.
Exactly. And a high-income earner looks out their window at that fit person jogging and thinks, why are they out there suffering in the cold? They don't need to jog. They are already in perfect shape.
Oh, I see where this is going.
But that observation completely reverses the causality. The only reason that person looks like they don't need to jog is because they jog every single day. The discipline created the result.
That is the exact cognitive error people make regarding wealth.
It's identical. A high-income earner looks at Mrs. Rule, the millionaire, sitting at her kitchen table tracking her grocery expenses and clipping coupons, and thinks, she has $2 million in the bank. Why is she wasting her time clipping coupons? She doesn't need to do that.
Right.
But the fundamental truth is that the only reason she has the $2 million in the first place, and the only reason she's able to keep it, is because she executes those mundane, disciplined behaviors every single day.
The affluent budget and track their expenses fiercely, even when it appears to the outside world like they possess more than enough capital to stop caring.
Yeah.
The practical takeaway from all of this data is that you must audit your own financial environment. If you do not have the behavioral discipline to sit down and track every single penny like Mrs. Rule, then you must engineer the environment of artificial scarcity.
Pay yourself first.
Yes, you have to remove 15% of your income and place it in investments before your brain even registers that you were paid.
You have to build a system where your defense operates automatically, putting the money out of reach of your own consumer impulses.
Exactly.
So pulling this all together and synthesizing these data points, what is the ultimate truth of this chapter?
If there is one clear defining insight from this entire deep dive, it is a complete redefinition of what wealth actually is. True wealth is almost never a collection of high-status artifacts.
Yeah.
It is not the bespoke suit hanging in the closet, it is not the vintage Bordeaux sitting on the dinner table, and it is certainly not the $60,000 luxury vehicle sitting in the driveway.
Those are just the receipts of money that has already left your possession.
Precisely. True wealth is invisible. It is the unglamorous, behind-the-scenes lifestyle of highly disciplined resource allocation. Frugality is not a punishment for those who fail to earn enough money.
Right.
Frugality is the absolute, non-negotiable foundation of financial independence. You cannot buy your way to wealth by purchasing the outward symbols of wealth.
You can't just put on the uniform and expect to win the championship. You actually have to play the game.
That's a great way to put it.
And as we've learned today, a massive part of winning that game is playing a relentless, suffocating defense against a culture that desperately wants you to spend every dime you make. We've seen how the Millionaire Next Door fiercely defends their capital with strict budgets, off-the-rack suits, and an unpretentious appreciation for free Budweiser.
Cheers to that.
But how do they defend their most finite and unrenewable resource of all? Next time, we'll explore the shocking ways the affluent allocate their time and emotional energy, and we will uncover why the truly wealthy actually spend significantly less time worrying about money than the rest of us. Until then, audit your closets, check your blind spots, and keep your defense strong.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.